Hi there bookish friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Megan and today I'm coming at you with a list of books that I have read recently. So let's get into it. And I know that I haven't made any videos in a while and life's just been hectic for everybody, but I'm back and ready to talk about some fun books that I've read recently, so let's get into it. So I have two books. I have a little series, a little duology that I want to talk about that I read. And the first one is Once and Future, and then I have a second book here, Sword in the Stars, and these are both by Amy Rose Capeccia and Corey McCarthy. I'm mostly just going to talk about the first book and I'll give a brief overview of what I thought of the second book. I don't want to go into any details because it's the second book of a series, so let's put that there. So if you don't know about the series, it's a futuristic retelling of King Arthur. We're a few thousand years in the future where Earth has been destroyed, and we have our main character, Ari, who is our female Arthur, and our King Arthurs in this series are being reincarnated, and she is the 42nd King Arthur and the first female King Arthur. She goes down to Earth to escape with her brother Kai, and she finds the sword in the stone, and she pulls the sword out of the stone, and that awakens our Merlin, and then things just kind of keep going from there. This book was really a lot of fun, and it's very gay, and the whole series is very gay and very queer, and I love it. It was so much fun. We have lesbian couples, we have gay couples, we have non-binary representation, and the whole series is just full of queer characters, and it just adds a little bit of extra dimension to the characters, and I really enjoy it. I really love this book. It was so much fun. We have a whole cast of characters. They're on a spaceship, and we have our Ari who has a magic sword, so girls in space with swords. It's perfect. It's awesome. And it was the exact kind of book I needed to kick off the new year, so I'm really glad that I read it. The only real issue I had with this book is that it was a little fast-paced at times, so I didn't get to fully connect to all the characters as much as I wanted to. So when their lives were at stake or whatever, I wasn't as connected to all the characters as I wanted to be. I know that this book is the author's debut novel, and I think that they did a really great job for their first book, and it's actually, I think it's my favorite retelling of King Arthur that I have read. And then the second book, which I have here, is also a lot of fun. My only qualm with the second book is that we focus less on Ari and her struggles, and we focus more on Merlin, who is also a very interesting character, and he's very gay, so I love that. Again, with the second book in the series, it's very fun as well, very action-packed. The action scenes in both these books are really well done, and I can really see everything happening, and did keep me on the edge of my toes a little bit, so I had a lot of fun with those scenes, and with the characters' dynamics between each other were also really good. I just wish we could have slowed down a little bit more in parts, and in this book specifically, we focused less on Ari and her relationships and more on Merlin, so I wanted this book to be a little bit bigger so we could have gotten more of Ari and her badassness. So I wish we could have gotten a little bit more, but for what we got, again, it's still my favorite retelling of King Arthur that I have ever read. If you're looking for something entertaining, easy to read, and fast-paced with a lot of queer representation, I would highly recommend this series. And the next book I want to talk about that I have read recently is Sherwood by Megan Spooner. This is another retelling. This is a retelling of Robin Hood. And at the very beginning of the book, Robin Hood dies. He dies away on the Crusades, and Maid Marian takes his mantle and becomes Robin Hood. That's just the bare synopsis of this book. And this book was also an easy read. Sadly, I didn't like it as much as I was hoping for. I thought it could have been done better, and I didn't fully relate to our main character's struggle. She felt a little bit naive and a little bit too stupid at times. I just wanted more from this book. There was some thoughtful dialogue put into one of the characters. Guy of Gisborne had some interesting things to say, but other than that, I felt like the character had a lot to learn, but she didn't really learn anything by the end of this book. And I just wanted her to grow and change and be better, and I just didn't feel like we got any of that. And we have a romance like two-thirds of the way into the book, and I really didn't like that either. It wasn't done very well. I've read a lot of books with like romance as a side plot, and this book just did not hit the, it just missed the mark for me completely on the romance aspect, and since the ending of this book kind of was hinging on that, this book fell flat for me. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna read any more by Megan Spooner, because this book was just kind of disappointing. After I read this book, I thought that if we had another retelling of Robin Hood, I would want Robin Hood to be a woman, and then Maid Marian and Robin Hood to have a lesbian relationship, because that would be really cool. You could really change up the story, because this book sadly didn't give me anything new in terms of the Robin Hood myth. It wasn't worth my time that much. It's one I'm probably gonna forget within a couple months. Also, a lot of the side characters were boring and bland, and they felt very one-dimensional, and I wanted more from our Will Scarlet and Little John and these kind of side characters, because she was supposed to be building up a group and gang to like steal from the rich to give to the poor. And there really was like one scene or two scenes of that. I just didn't feel like what she was doing had enough of an impact on the sheriff for him to want to put out posters and look for Robin Hood. The only thing that I really liked about this book was that we got scenes with her and young Robin Hood, little tidbits, only about 8 pages worth of scenes, but little tidbits into their relationship throughout this book, and that was cute. But that's the only thing that I really liked about this book. Everything else was just kind of boring and annoying at times, so yeah, sadly not what I wanted from a Robin Hood retelling, and hopefully the next book that I read is not going to be this bad, because I just finished this book, so yeah. And the next book that I want to talk about, I have here A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kimmer. And if you don't know, this book is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Our main character, Harper, gets kidnapped by Commander Grey, who is commander of Prince Ren, who was put under a curse by an evil enchantress. Basic sort of plot of Beauty and the Beast-ish. If you don't know, this book is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Our main character, Harper, has cerebral palsy, so that was really nice to get some disability rep, and especially since this book takes place mostly in a fantastical setting where that kind of disability rep almost never happens, which is really annoying, and I want to see more of that in the future. But anyway, Harper is a really great character to follow. I really loved watching her struggle to decide what was the right choice to do, and I really loved watching her journey and her struggle in this book, how she was just very brave and smart and could actually make choices of her own, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed her character and getting to follow her point of view for most of this book. But she's kidnapped by Commander Grey and taken from her home world to this fantastical setting where she meets Prince Ren, who is the prince that's been put under a spell by this evil enchantress, and he's trying to find someone who will fall in love with him so that he can break the curse and help save his people from other countries trying to come in and take over. I really like the journey that Prince Ren goes through in this book and how he grows and changes with the help of his two friends, and becomes a better person by the end of this book. And I really loved Commander Grey. He was an interesting and mysterious character who we didn't learn a ton about his backstory, but enough to get a sense of who he is and how loyal he is to the prince. I loved the relationship between him and Harper, and that was really fun to watch and see them connect as well. And Harper gets to make a lot of choices later on in the book and decisions that are actually listened to by the prince and Commander Grey, and I really like seeing them listening to her and taking her advice on what they should do in certain situations. So that was really fun to watch. The only thing that I didn't like about this book was the kidnapping bit at the beginning. That's not cool. Don't kidnap people. That's not cool for any reason. And then the fact that the first 5 or 6 chapters, we kind of got this a few times, where she's not like other girls. She doesn't like fancy dresses. She doesn't want to stay in a big castle. She wants to learn how to throw knives and whatnot. And I'm like, can we not do that, please? I'm so tired of seeing that trope in books and movies, especially newer books, like this one came out a couple of years ago. So that is an annoying trope, and one that I never need to see again, ever. I'm so done with it. So tired of it. That's this book. The last book that I want to talk about I have here is A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and that is the second book in this trilogy, because it's actually a trilogy. And this book I don't want to spoil the second book in the series, but I have to say that sadly I didn't like this book as much as I was hoping for. In this book, we follow Commander Gray's point of view through most of the book, and another female character that we get introduced to. And sadly, we only see one chapter from Harper's point of view, and that's at the beginning. And then we only see her like 5 more times throughout the book, and we don't get to see much of Prince Ren either. And I didn't like how Prince Ren and Harper, the few times we got to see them in this book, they kind of felt like different characters, and they did things that I felt like they wouldn't have done in the first book, but they were doing in this book for some reason. And yeah, that was really annoying. But I did enjoy following Gray and getting him to seeing him go on his own journey and making friends and connections with other people. But sadly, I just thought that I just was really annoyed by some of the character changes, because I really like what we see Gray go through and how he grows and changes in this book. He becomes a different person. He becomes a slightly better person at the end of this book, so that was nice to see. I just wish that he hadn't felt quite so different as he does at the beginning of this book than at the end of this first book. So I felt like the characters just were a little bit out of whack. That being said, I'm still planning on reading the third book in this series. I want to know how the author's going to wrap up this trilogy and what's going to happen to the characters that I do like. And yeah, and this book was also a book that I just read in like a day or two, because it's an easy read. It's something that I could just sit through. I could just sit and read, and it kind of just immersed me in the story. I loved the magical, fantastical elements of this book, and the fight scenes were also really good, and it did keep me on my toes, and I wasn't sure if someone was going to die at some points. I did like a lot of the action scenes, and our new female character in this book, I wasn't as impressed with her, but I didn't hate her. I just wish that she had been a little bit braver on her own. And so we'll see what happens in the third book and see how the author wraps up this trilogy and what happens to some of these characters that I've grown to really like. So yeah. So yeah, this book was okay. It was fun at times and exciting at other times, but it was really a downer that the characters felt so different from the first book. If it hadn't been for that, I would have enjoyed this book a lot more. But that's all I'm going to say about this book. So that's it for the books that I have read recently. If you have read any of these books, let me know down below in the comments if you liked them, if you didn't like them, what you thought of them, or if you're planning on reading any of them. And that's all for this little video. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye!